Hey, welcome back to the National Defense. It's Randy Miller. We got a good one for you today. This is great. Tom Naratil is with us, and Tom became president of UBS Americas, I think, in 2016. We want to welcome him to the program and to the Executive Leadership Series here on the National Defense. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing great today, Randy. Great to be here.
Is that right, 2016? Did I get that right?
You got that exactly right.
Yeah.
January 2016.
UBS is many, many, many things. Kind of boil that down for us, will you?
So UBS, global financial services firm, largest wealth manager in the world, very significantly sized investment bank and asset manager around the world, and then we're also the largest bank in Switzerland. Here in the United States, we've got 23,000 employees here, so about a third of our global workforce. We're in the wealth management, asset management, and investment banking businesses. We've got offices in 49 out of the 50 states, 300 locations around the country. So we always joke with people. People say that you're a Swiss firm, and we've got a Swiss parent, but I can tell you 23,000 people that work in the U.S. feel pretty American.
Yeah, I'll bet they do. And you're obviously not working from home. How did you guys fare during the pandemic and taking that spin around and making that pivot?
So look, we're in one of those industries that was fortunate enough to be able to have our workforce work remotely. We went from 95% of our people working in an office and 5% working from home to 95% at home and 5% in the office in about a 2-week period. Our business is heavily technology oriented, and being a global firm, we always used video. We very rarely had everyone all in the same location. So we were well prepared. We had invested a lot in virtual desktoping, which allowed us to make the change very quickly. And then, markets were really volatile. When the pandemic started, our clients needed a lot of advice, whether they were corporates or institutions or individuals. And we were able to provide that remotely and provide a lot of information to them. So we as a firm, as well as our industry, we're able to do quite well. I'd say big change. We learned a lot from the pandemic, and now we think going forward, pretty much we've identified 2/3 of the roles that we have can experience some form of hybrid working experience going forward.
Yeah, well, you talk about providing answers. That was critical, obviously, during the beginning of the pandemic, and to have somebody like UBS there and still operating and running had to mean the world to your customers.
Yeah, absolutely, Randy. And I also think, too, I'll say something on behalf of the industry. Unlike when we saw the crisis in the economy in 2008 during the global financial crisis, the banks really were a source of strength, during the pandemic. Versus being the cause of the problem back in 2008. I think that's one of the things that helped the economy come back so quickly from something as devastating as the pandemic. We still have more to go in terms of bringing the economy back, in particular, on unemployment. But the banks were in a good position to be able to lend to the economy and to be able to help business people keep running and get back on their feet.
Absolutely. Tom, I had no idea about UBS and the connection to veterans. And it just blows my mind about what you guys currently do, have been doing, all of these different veterans programs that you offer. Let's go through these, a few of these, if you can. First of all, your hiring initiatives.
Yeah. So first, maybe Randy, I'll just dial it back just to touch on, how did our teams become so involved? It really was a bottoms up effort. A number of years ago, we always had people who were very active individually with different veterans initiatives. But I had two guys who worked for me, both veterans, came to me back in, must have been 2008 or 2009, and just said, we really think that we should have a UBS Veterans Network, bring together people who have served or people who have family or people who just want to support our veterans. And we just want to share ideas, share initiatives, and start working on this. And they said, we need it. We need an executive sponsor. Will you do it? And I said, absolutely. It was a pretty good deal for me. They were doing all the work and they just needed me to clear brush right out of the way. But that really started the focus on bringing together all of our individuals who had this common interest, and then thinking about how can we get more leverage out of this. Now, when you talk about our hiring programs, this was really really something where, our view was the things that our veterans experience, the training that they get, the teamwork that they're used to, the fact that they're used to dealing in uncertain and stressful situations, were all just, fantastic training for a lot of the things that we see in our business. And so we started our Veterans Associate Program, which is really focused on, having a 20-week paid rotational kind of approach, which allows our employees, because at that point they're joining us as employees, to experience different parts of our business. It gives them a better feel for, is it investment banking that I like? Is it sales and trading? Is it maybe research? Is it wealth management? Is it asset management? And then for them to, show, what they have and what they can do, and for us to show what are we about, and to come to a meeting of the minds after those 20 weeks about where's the best fit for that individual in our organization and how they can contribute. So I'm really, we're really impressed with what our VIP program members have been able to contribute to the firm, and how they're growing in their careers. I'd say the one bit of advice I always have to give, the folks when they join us in the Veterans Associate Program is, you guys are, as a group, veterans tend to undersell their capabilities, and really don't do as much PR about their own capabilities as they could. And I always try to encourage them to say, look, I know that's part of the culture, but part of the culture of being in business is certainly not to undersell yourself. And we try to work with them on balancing that out. Their natural.
Just doing my job, ma'am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
yeah, you're exactly right, Tom, and that's a good point, because as we know on this program, veterans do make the absolutely best employees. I was talking to a veteran the other day that went through an interview process, and the interviewer said, do you consider yourself pretty loyal? And he said, well, in my last job, I offered to take a bullet for my boss. He said, so yeah, I'm pretty loyal. And you mentioned that Veterans Network, Tom. That is so important to veterans, as you know, to have that camaraderie and that culture, that common shared experience with each other. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So look, our Veterans Network, is, I'm really proud of our folks, because first of all, they surprise me, every time during the year in terms of what we're doing, because you'll see some creative ideas. And I would say one of the things that, when we've had, members of our UBS team, who are reservists or National Guards, who've been deployed, what they do to focus on taking care of the families while their family members are overseas and deployed. We had one, and this is a lighter side of that support, but we had a member of our team who was overseas in Iraq, big golfer, and it just seemed that our team members started shipping over golf clubs and golf balls. And they sent over enough golf clubs and golf balls that there was a driving range available for his entire unit
Ah,
whenever they were back at camp. And um, I just think, probably not the most serious or most practical thing that we could have
yeah,
provided.
but hey, you know what though? That kind of stuff is so important, and I've heard from so many, especially reservists and the National Guard, that any kind of taste of home. I'll give you a quick little story about something that we did one time. We heard from a veteran that was in. This was back in Panama, and this is 20 days before Noriega was captured. And he called the show, and I said, "What's the one thing you miss from home?" And he said, "White Castle hamburgers." So I called at the time Senator Bob Dole and Congressman Ike Skelton. I said, "Is there any way we can do this?" Well, myself, along with our production director, flew over on a C-130 with 10,000 frozen White Castle hamburgers and landed in Panama. And those guys were I mean, you've never seen a happier bunch of guys.
That's a great door-to-door delivery for sure.
Oh, it was fantastic. Except they picked us up at the airport in an LAV and forgot to tell us that there were still snipers in the area. So the first thing they said to us was, "Keep your head down." Well, that wasn't part of the deal. Hey, we're talking to Tom Naratil here, president of UBS Americas on the national defense. And you guys have so many programs for veterans. It's amazing, and not just for veterans, but also for their families, as you talked about. But I know your military family support group and the spouses a lot of times get neglected or get overlooked. But you guys think about that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this, I talked a little bit before, Randy, about how grounds up this is. The military family support group, part of our veterans network, was started by one of our employees who was herself a spouse of a deployed reservist. And she said, here's what I experienced, and I want to learn from what happened to me in terms of what more can we do to be able to help to support those family members when their other family members are deployed. And that, I think just shows really how engaged our folks are, how committed, as anyone in the military knows, the family serves as well. And, our ability to help to support them and be accommodative, I think is extremely important. I think what those family members feel when they've got that incremental support, I just think is helpful, during what certainly is a trying time for them as well.
Yeah, and it does a lot more than people think, because the one thing when you're in active duty, the one thing you don't want to have to think about is how your family's doing or how they're getting along or adjusting. And when you can have that kind of clear vision and peace of mind, I think it's good for the national defense. I mean, it's good for everybody, because you know that a company like UBS is there to support them as well. Talk about a little bit about, do you guys have any kind of events or any kind of get-togethers for veterans?
Yeah, we have obviously pandemic sort of squeezed a number of those
Sure.
things
Right.
down. We've gone more into the virtual mode in terms of, how can we bring people together and how can we have events? We have a number of employee networks here at UBS, and I've seen a lot of partnerships with those networks during, for example, during Black History Month. We've had the Veterans Network and our Mosaic Network combine to get in some, very senior flag officers, who've served
Right.
and who come from diverse backgrounds. And, it's really something that's, a great event for our people to attend. Back pre-pandemic, that would have been in person.
Sure.
And that's great to see. But also, that, bringing folks together, whether it's, and we partner with a number of third party, other third parties with us, to combine. I think if you look at, for example, the Dixon Center, We do a lot of work. We've got a number of individuals who work with them. Just a little story dialing that back. Colonel Dave Sutherland, who is the chairman of that group and co-founder of the Dixon Center. We first encountered Dave when he was working for Admiral Mullen in the Pentagon on warrior and family affairs. So we started that relationship with him early on. He taught us a lot in that role, and since then about, hey, you got a lot of energy and spirit, but let's try to focus it in the right places so you can be even more effective in what you're doing. And that's the work that the Dixon Center is now doing as well.
You know, and it's so inspirational to hear, Tom, exactly what UBS is doing. And in terms of somebody that's transitioning out of the military, it's a lot of times it's a tough road, and you don't have that support group there. You don't know, like we love to say on this show, there's a boot camp for going into the military, but no boot camp for coming out, right? So you've got that kind of empty, kind of lost situation, and UBS not only solves that, but also pays to train people that are transitioning out. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and Randy, I mean, one thing that an additional program I'm really proud of is our enlisted veterans apprenticeship program. And this is one of the things, we're very focused. We looked at our VIP program, and we were 99% officers, and we started thinking about, we've got a great industry. We've got an industry where it certainly puts people in a position where they can earn more than the average wage across the country. And we said, how can we let our enlisted veterans participate in that? And that means we've got to work a little bit harder. And so one of the things that we've said is, look, we're going to set this up. Interestingly, it was part of us joining the previous administration's pledge to the American worker, where we said, look, we're going to create new jobs. We want to focus it on enlisted veterans. We commit to hiring enlisted veterans and bringing them in where we train them, we get them licensed to serve as financial advisors. We work with them to work part-time with us and go back to school if they haven't achieved their bachelor's degree yet. We assign them a mentor who helps them with, hey, how are you going to balance, work and also earning your degree at that time? So we customize the job so they can do that. And then when they've completed both that degree and the apprenticeship program, they've got a career as a financial advisor, and
Wow.
in line with what they were doing when they were serving. Being a financial advisor is about helping people to prepare for the future and be financially prepared. And we find they've got the right feeling of purpose in that role to be able to help people going forward. And it's also a career where they can do quite well personally. So I think that program is unique. I don't know anyone else who's doing that, and we're quite proud of it.
I don't. I was just going to say I have never heard of someone doing that, and it just kind of struck me too that when they get to that point where they're working for UBS and they're meeting with possibly some other veteran clients, boy, how handy does that come in, right?
Yeah. Well, by the way, that's an additional point in terms of needs for the veteran community. Certainly a need for greater financial literacy, understanding, how do you manage and plan for your future? How do you save for your family? And getting that, certainly when we've got over 400 people at UBS who've participated as mentors with the American Corporate Partners Initiative around the country. I think one of the things, those 300 locations I talked about before means, we actually can be present to help to mentor veterans in a number of communities around the country, not just those, big cities, but some of those smaller cities as well. And, work on understanding and not, look, there's still some folks out there who like to prey on veterans with some financial products. And so we're also trying to help them and put them in a position where they can certainly be more aware of what someone might try to do to them.
Man, that's fantastic, because that is a huge problem, and we hear about it all the time. In terms of taking advantage of veterans, and it's just nice to know that somebody else out there is aware of that and looking out for them. Tom, I can't thank you enough for what UBS is doing for veterans, and thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it, and just keep up the good work.
Well, thanks a lot, Randy. Enjoyed being with you on the show, and our veterans deserve this attention and support. They supported us and they served, and it's only a small thing that we can do to help them.
We'll be right back here in the National Defense.